we are discuss three topics. The topic number one, which is sulfur cycle, topic number two, which is phosphorus cycle, and the topic number three, which is effect of human activities on the environment. Right. First of all, we start with the uh, First of all, we start with the sulfur cycle. Okay, so what is sulfur cycle? So sulfur cycle is the cyclic process where the one form of the sulfur is being interchanged in the biological cycle, right? So basically, it shows the essential role of the sulfur in the biological system. Sulfur cycle show how sulfur is being transformed and transported from organized to organized, finally to atmosphere or in the earth crust, right? So, okay, here the sulfur cycles are given, the various steps of the sulfur cycle are given, right? So first of all, the basic step, which is biological oxidation of element or elemental sulfur. It means that the sulfur is a elemental sulfur. It means environmental sulfur is oxidized into the SO4 or into the sulfate form, right? And it generates energy by the electron flow cycle. So mainly it is done by the sulfur bacteria. The oxidation of sulfur to sulfate is also done by the nature, spontaneous via different means like burning of the sulfur, then reaction with other compounds and the oxygens, right? Okay, the second step of the sulfur cycle, which is the dissimilatory sulfur reduction of the elemental sulfur. It means that the sulfur, atmospheric sulfur, is reduced the SO2 ion, right? So this form of the hydrogen sulfide, a toxic gas for the oxygen dependent organism, right? So these are the majorly performed by the anaerobic sulfur bacteria, mainly the pink sulfur bacteria, right? So this process electron for the bacteria to carry out the ET chain, it means the food chain for the completion, right? So as it is dissimilatory process, it produces enough energy along with loss of the energy, right? So the third process, which is assimilatory sulfur reduction, it means that it requiring energy for the reaction, right? So the reaction in endothermic and require reduced enzyme. So this process is mainly applied by the plant after absorbing sulfate from the soil, and it is converted into the sulfur containing amino acid, right? So this is the gateway for the sulfur to enter inside the food chain and form to one organism to another, and the food chain will be continued, right? So, and it is a reduction process that in which the oxygen is removed from the sulfate. Okay, the next step, which is the mineralization of the organic sulfur. It means that where the sulfur gets back to the soil after the plant has been dead. It means the decomposition process, right? So after the organism is dead, the sulfur containing amino acid are broken down by the decomposer and it is mixed with the soil like a sulfide, right? So a portion of it is escaped into the atmosphere in the form of the hydrogen sulfide by the decomposition of sulfated amino acid, right? So this process is interfered by the pollution and mainly the sulfur dioxide pollution. Okay, the next step of the sulfur cycle, which is the biological and chemical oxidation of the sulfur. So in this process, the sulfide is again converted back to the elemental sulfur form. And this oxidation process is carried out both the microbes or the decomposers and the environmental factor, right? So the places where the process happen, it quite well, then the place become sulfur rich and deposition of the sulfur can be seen, right? So in this step, the oxido reductase enzyme play the main and vital role in the conversion of S2 to S. Okay, the next process, which is the dissimilatory sulfur sulfate reduction. It means that it is one of the chief physiochemical function of the sulfur bacteria that uses the sulfur as an electron carrier rather than the oxygen, right? So this process liberates energy that is utilized by the sulfur dependent microbes, mainly green sulfur bacteria, right? So it is a reduction process where the hydrogen atom is accepted or the electron is accepted by the molecules, right? So this process is one of the chief process by the sulfur bacteria that form the hydrogen sulfide in sulfur rich areas. Okay, and the last step of the sulfur cycle, which is the biological oxidation of the sulfide. It means that the sulfide ion is oxidized to the sulfate form. Then it is the insoluble form of the most of the organism, but it requiring sulfur. So to make it soluble, the sulfide is oxidized to sulfate for better absorption. Okay, so this process is majorly done by the soil microbes, and this process can be endothermic if it is by biological, but if it is by natural means it is exothermic in the nature, right? Okay, so this is the all about the sulfur cycle. Now here on screen you can see that the picture of the sulfur cycle are there. So basically in the sulfur cycle, first of all the elemental sulfur, which with the use of the thiopsilius bacteria, and which is converted into the sulfate, right? After that the sulfate, which is the after the reduction reaction, they are converted into the hydrogen sulfide, right? And the bacteria which is bacillus bacteria. Okay, and this hydrogen sulfide again convert into the elemental sulfur with the again help of the chlorobium bacteria. Okay, now the sulfur, the elemental sulfate which create the sulfate, which is again the sulfate is given by the soil into the plant, right? After that the plant is eaten by the animals. Okay, the animal and the plant which is dead and decay of the decay and the decomposition process are there. Okay, for decomposition process, the microorganism take sulfate and the hydrogen sulfide, right? Then the after a long time, the decomposition process completed, and some part of which is converted into the sediment, right? So this sedimental portion, which is again converted into the metal sulfide, and the metal sulfide after the reduction process, they are again converted into the hydrogen sulfide. Okay, so some part of the sediment and the many years then it is converted into the volcanic eruption are there, and they are again converted into the hydrogen sulfide. Again this hydrogen sulfide with the help of the bacteria, chlorobium bacteria, they are again converted into the elemental sulfur, right? So here on screen you can see that the cycle of the sulfur, it is completed by the elemental sulfur. Now the second, which is the phosphorus cycle. Okay, so the phosphorus cycle, it is the slowest biochemical cycle that describes the movement of the phosphorus through the lithosphere, hydrosphere and the biosphere, right? Unlike the many other geochemical cycles, the atmosphere does not play a significant role in the movement of phosphorus, because phosphorus and the phosphorus based compound are usually solid at that physical range of the temperature and pressure found on the earth, right? So the low concentration of the phosphorus in the soil reduce the plant growth and slow the soil microbial growth, right? And phosphorus, we know that the phosphorus is important for the growth of the plants and animals, right? So unlike other cycle of the phosphorus cannot be found in the air and gas, it only occurs under the highly reduction condition as the gas phosphide, right? Now, the process of the phosphorus cycle, initially the phosphate, whether from the rock and minerals, the most common minerals begin apatite, right? So overall the small losses occurs in the terrestrial environment by the leaching erosion through the action of the rain, and the weathering of rocks and minerals release the phosphorus in a soluble form, and where it is taken up by the plants and it is transformed into the various organic compounds, right? And the plant may be taken by the various animals, right, or herbivores, and the phosphorus is either incorporated into their tissues or the excreted, right? So after the death of the animal or plant, the decomposition process are there, and the phosphorus is returned into the soil, where a large part of the phosphorus is transferred into the insoluble compound, and the runoff may carry a small part of the phosphorus back into the ocean, right? So here the whole process of the phosphorus cycle are done. Okay, now the various steps in the phosphorus cycle. The first is phosphate is released by the erosion of the rock or weathering action of the rock, right? Then plant and fungi take up the phosphate with the roots of the plant, right? And the phosphorus then move from the producer to the consumer via the food chain. It means that the plants that consume the plant consumed by the animals, right? Then phosphorus may seep into the groundwater from the soil over the time of forming into the rock, and when this rock erodes, the cycle begins again. So this is the steps in the phosphorus cycle. Okay, here the phosphorus cycle pictures are there. First of all, you can see that in the mountain the weathering of rocks are there, right? After that, this rock is converted into the phosphate, and they meet into the river. Half portion of phosphate which flow into the water body, and half portion which run into the soil, right? After that, the underground the soil into the soil, the plant will consume this phosphorate, and the food chain will continue. Okay, so here on screen you can see that the animal which consume the plant, right? After that, the plant and animal are dead, and the decomposition process are there. Again, the decomposition process are there, and again they reduce the phosphate, and this phosphate which goes into the soil, and after the leaching effect, this phosphorus which again goes into the ocean and underwater phosphate reservoir, right? So that and after the some times or many years after, this phosphorate which is converted into the rock, and they goes to the atmosphere, right? So this is the phosphorus cycle. Now, effect of the human activities on the environment. So various activities are there. The first activity is which is deforestation. It means that the carbon dioxide, tree take a carbon dioxide and the oxygen which is released into the environment, right? So cutting down of trees for the land and rise in the population, right? Then industrialization. So it is imbalance the ecological system, right? So result in the decrease in oxygen level in the air, right? The second one which is the water pollution. Okay, basically due to the large industrialization, right, and the water which is contaminated in the large scale, then lack of the proper sewage system and various human activities near the water bodies, okay, which create a water pollution. And sometimes the seas and ocean has oil spillage which has a long-term effect on the water, which is living in the unavailable for the consumption, which is a second effect of human activity. The third one which is air pollution, right? So overpopulation has immensely caused air pollution in the many ways, one of which is used vehicle of the transportation, then harmful gases which is emitted from the industries, and then causing us a breath problem, then various diseases are arising, right? Now, the next one which is global warming. Okay, we all know about the global warming, right? It is a result of increasing temperature of the earth due to the greenhouse gases, and the result is melting the ice and the rises in the sea level, right? Then habitat destruction. It means that the survival of the wildlife is became difficult as their natural habitat is being cut down. It means trees, right? So that deforestation may result in the availability of land but leave animal homeless. Okay. The next one which is the harmful chemicals and the fertilization. Okay, with increase in the population, there is a demand of increasing the food. So for the survival purpose or for demanding the food or to meet the availability, the plant are being growth with the use of the harmful chemicals or fertilizer which have a very low nutrients values. So this is it about the harmful chemical and fertilizer. And the last one, which is urbanization. It means that it is a significant change in the imbalance in our ecosystem. It means that urbanization, it means that the tendency of rural area which is shifting from the urban area for the various use of the technologies, right? So that the population of the urban area is increasing day by day and they are using a new technology, right? So that the urbanization is a major problem. Increasing urbanization is major problem on our environment. So this is the effect of human activities on the environment. So this is all about the today's lecture. I hope you all understood about the today's lecture. Thank you for watching. Thank you.